aspirants. In the previous session, we studied about the 6th century BCE. We understood the significance of 6th century BCE. We understood that the century was known for the rise of 16 great kingdoms known as Mahajanpadas. Also, we understood that the century was known for the beginning, the rise of new religious thoughts. So today we are going to study the religious movements that emerged in 6th century BCE. So let us continue with this religious movements. Now, the two religious movements, the important one that emerged in 6th century BCE were Jainism and Buddhism. Now, these movements, they emerged as a response to the prevailing dominance of the Brahmanical order. Now, we understood that in the later Vedic period, caste system formalized. Brahmins occupied the topmost position and they began to dominate the doctrines. They began to dictate the terms of religion. And as a result, religion underwent a drastic change. From simplicity, it began to exhibit the features of complexity. It was dominated by ritualism, marked by social inequalities. And hence, as a reaction to all this prevailing ritualism, inequalities, two new religious movements emerged. Hence, since these two religious movements emerged as a reaction to the prevailing circumstances, these religions are also known as reactionary religions, or we can refer to this period as a period of reactionary religious movements. Okay, so we are going to study these two religions in depth, Jainism and Buddhism. Now, let us first try to understand what were the causes for the rise of these two religious groups, sects, okay, Jainism and Buddhism. So let us discuss what were the important causes for their rise. The first one being reaction against ritualism. As I just mentioned that in the later Vedic period, Brahmins began to dominate the religious terms, the religious doctrines, and as a result, simplicity was now replaced by complex, expensive rituals and ceremonies. And these ceremonies were quite expensive beyond the reach of the common man, beyond the reach of the ordinary man. Hence, corruption began to creep into the religious practices. In order to extract money, priests encouraged ordinary people to perform yajna, to perform rituals which were beyond their means. So, Jainism and Buddhism emerged as a reaction against this ritualism and encouraged people to not to perform these rituals because these were extremely futile, of no use. All right. The second important reason was the rigid caste system. So we had seen that in the later Vedic period, the society formalized into the caste division, the topmost layer being occupied by Brahmins, then Kshatriya, then Vaishya, and Shudra. And this system was quite rigid. It endorsed the practices like endogamy. Okay, so you have to marry in your own varna. The next important practice was that you have to follow the occupation of your varna only. All right. It did not allow any social mobility. A person of one caste could not become the member of another caste. All right. There were also restrictions on the basis of caste with respect to food, drink, and marriage. Interchange of caste was impossible. So, as a result, this system was quite complex. It led to the discrimination which was not tolerated by Jainism and Buddhism. The founders of Jainism and Buddhism, they talked about equality. They talked about the society which is casteless, which is based on equality. And people were attracted towards such progressive ideas. Then the third important reason is the rise of Vaishyas. Now, in the later Vedic period, slowly and gradually, small states, we saw that Janas emerged. These Janas gradually transformed into Janpads, and finally we had Mahajanpads. Okay, now in the Mahajanpad period, it was a very prosperous period where 16 kingdoms were there. They flourished. It led to the rise of trade and commerce, system of coinage, and hence trade and commerce flourished. Because of the trade and commerce, one particular caste emerged a great dominance, and that was Vaishya community. Now, Vaishya means the merchant community. So these merchants participated in the trade and commerce, and they attained economic prosperity. They earned a lot of money. They became wealthy. But unfortunately, in spite of becoming wealthy, they had no respect in the society. Why? Because the society was based on the terms and conditions of the caste system, where only Brahmins and Kshatriya enjoyed all the respect. As a result, Vaishyas were resented. They did not like this discrimination. And both Buddha and Mahavir, they preached about equality. And as a result, merchant community got attracted towards this Jainism and Buddhism. And hence, a big chunk or big group of merchants, they embraced either Jainism or Buddhism. Then we see the next is difficult language. Okay. Now, Sanskrit was a language which was used in the later Vedic period, and further it was used by Brahmins in order to perform rituals. Also, most of the Vedic literature was composed in the Sanskrit language. Okay. The priest also gave religious discourses and also mantras. Everything was chanted in the Sanskrit language. However, it was very difficult for the common people to understand this language, taking into consideration its complexity. All right. And as a result, people were not able to understand what is being spoken, what is being written, actually written in those mantras and the literature. And the advantage of this was taken by the Brahmins. However, when we talk about Gautam Buddha and Mahavir, they preached in the language of the common people. They used such languages that could be easily understood by the common men. For example, Mahavir used Prakrit. Prakrit was the widely spoken language of that time. So Mahavir preached his doctrines in the Prakrit language, and as a result, common people were able to understand what is being explained by Mahavir. At the same time, Gautam Buddha, he used Pali language, yet another common language of the time. Okay, so please remember, Mahavir used Prakrit language, and Gautam Buddha, he used Pali language. And these were the languages of the common men. And since both of them explained their philosophies in the layman terms, people were attracted towards these religious. Okay. The yet another important reason is agricultural economy. So agriculture was the prime occupation of the people. We had seen that in the later Vedic period, even during the Mahajanpads, agriculture was the main subsistence base of the people. However, Brahmins incorporated and even the Kshatriyas incorporated different rituals and practices that involved animal sacrifice. So, one famous sacrifice which we have already covered was the Ashwamedha Yajna, the horse sacrifice. Okay, like that, number of sacrifices were there where even were sacrificed. And common people, since majority of them were farmers, they needed these animals in their agricultural economy. All right. And on the top of that, the Brahmins were encouraging animal sacrifices. Both Mahavir and Buddha spoke against this. They preached the gospel of ahimsa. We talked about non-violence, and they were against ritualism and animal sacrifices. Okay. Now, since both these religious doctrines, Jainism and Buddhism, they offered a very simple, ethical, and practical solution and practical teachings. And these teachings were based on compassion, non-violence, equality. And hence, these teachings appealed to common people, and they got attracted towards these new religious doctrines. And in this manner, this led to the rise and flourishing of these two new religious movements, Jainism and Buddhism. Okay, so we have understood the factors responsible for the rise and growth of Jainism and Buddhism. You can expect a 10 marks question in the mains examination as to what are the different factors responsible for the rise of religious movements in 6th century BCE. So you are supposed to explain these examples, these points in detail. Okay, now we are going to specifically focus on Buddha and Buddhism. So in today's lecture, we'll be covering Buddha and Buddhism. Okay, when we talk about Buddha and Buddhism, so Gautam Buddha, whose original name is Siddharth, he is the founder of Buddhism. All right. Buddhism, it showed the path of truth, non-violence, compassion, and enlightenment to all beings. So let us try to understand the story, the life story of Lord Gautam Buddha. All right. All right. So let us begin. So we have already understood that Gautam Buddha, he belonged to a Kshatriya family. Both Mahavir and Buddha belong to Kshatriya Varna. Okay. Now, when we talk about Gautam Buddha, his father was Suddhodana. Okay. His father was Suddhodana. His mother was Mayadevi. Father Suddhodana, he was the chief of Shakya clan. Shakya, it was yet another kingdom. This was not mentioned in Mahajanpad. It was a separate clan, Shakya clan, and it was again a Gana Sangha. All right, so it was a Ganesh Sangha. So Gautam Buddha's father, his name was Suddhodana, mother was Maya Devi, all right, and Suddhodana was the chief of Shakya clan. Shakya was a Ganesh Sangha, okay. Now, Maya Devi, she conceived Gautam Buddha, okay, and one day she got a dream. In that dream, she witnessed that white elephant with extreme light was entering her womb. Now, that vision, that dream itself was a symbol that someone great was about to take birth from her womb. Okay, so that was the initial dream, and hence, white elephant is revered in Buddhism. Okay, white elephant. So, white elephant in the Maya Devi's dream is also depicted in many of the paintings in Ajanta caves. All right, fine. So, so Gautam Buddha was born to Maya Devi. So while she was going to her maternal house, she underwent a labor pain, and across her leg, okay, her nurses, the maids, basically helped her, and it is like with all the lotus leaves and all, she was covered, and baby was delivered. Okay, so after the delivery of the baby, soon Maya Devi died. Okay, so she died because of the complications she underwent during the childbirth. Now, after the baby's birth, Suddhodana invited a rishi, a sage, okay, uh, to look after the child and to give the basically the astrological aspects of the baby and suggest a name for the baby. Okay, so that rishi came to give his blessings to the boy, and after seeing the boy, Rishi said that the name of the boy would be Siddharth. Okay, so his original name is Siddharth, and Buddha was born as Prince Siddharth at Lumbini near Kapila Vastu. It is located across Indo-Nepal border. So the original name is Siddharth. Okay. Now, coming back to Rishi's observations. So, after looking at the baby, he named him as Siddharth because of the immense glow on the baby, and he would definitely bring prosperity to the kingdom. The next important thing he said to his father was that either the baby will become a great king who will be known for the centuries, or he will be a renuncier and gradually he will become a great philosopher or a sage. All right. So his father was like, if he becomes the first one, that is a great king, that is an acceptable thing because he was the eldest son and he wanted that Siddharth should become his successor. But what if he will become the renuncier? Then who will take care of my kingdom? So he questioned him why and how he will become a renuncier. So Sage replied, a time will come in his life when he will witness certain truths of life, After witnessing those truths of life, he will begin to question. And in order to find the answers of those questions, he will leave his house and he will become a renuncier and gradually transform into a great philosopher. Now, after hearing this, so Dodana, he took all the measures so that Buddha would not witness all those events which would ultimately lead to the questioning part. Okay. So he ensured that all the luxuries, all the teaching, everything was given to Buddha within the kingdom itself. So he ensured that all the teachers would come to the palace to teach him. All the facilities were available within the palace, all right, so that he would not leave the palace, he would not witness those visuals, okay. Also, to keep him engrossed into the family life, it was ensured that Buddha was married at a young age. Okay, so he was married to a lady, Yashodhara, and from Yashodhara, he had a son, Rahula. Fine. Now, one day, Suddhodana was not in the kingdom, he was out. So, Gautam Buddha, he took the advantage of the situation and he, along with his charioteer, along with his sarthi, began to tour the entire kingdom. And while touring the entire kingdom, those visuals appear in front of him. The four important visuals that appear in front of him were the very first one, sick man. The second one was the old man. Third was a corpse, that is a dead man. And the fourth one, ascetic. Now, this visuals began him to question about the intricacies of life. Okay, why is a person suffering? So he saw a sick man, he was suffering. So why there is a pain? Why there is a sorrow? Why a person is suffering? Next was an old man who was bent with the age. Why this man has become so old? Why he is in a pain because he was bent? Okay, then a dead body. So why this person is lying like this? What will happen after death? Okay, ascetic. What is this person doing? Why he meditating? For what purpose? So all these questions began to revolve in his mind, and he wanted to find the answers to these questions. Ultimately, he left his home at the age of 29. At the age of 29, he left his home, and this event is known as Mahabhisha Kramana. So, Mahabhisha Kramana in Buddhism refers to the great renunciation, the event when Buddha left his house. Okay, and this particular event where he saw the great sights, this is known as the great sites. These events are known as the great sites only. Okay. And Mahabhisha Kramana is the event when he left his house. Okay. Buddha, he left his house at the age of 29. For 6 years, he wandered from here and there. He roamed here and there. He was meditating here and there. Finally, after undergoing lot of penance, lot of struggles and hardships, at the age of 35, under the Bodhi tree, he attained enlightenment. Finally, he got all the answers to his questions. He realized what is the ultimate truth. And that day, he became Buddha. The meaning of term Buddha is the enlightened one. From that point of time, he is known as Gautam Buddha. Buddha, that is the enlightenment. Okay. So the original name is Siddharth. Siddharth, the name given to him was by the sage who visited him. Then, since his mother died soon after his birth, Buddha was raised by his stepmother. The name of the stepmother was Gautami. So, since Gautami raised him, he was known as Gautam. Okay. Then the next important thing, he belonged to Shakya clan. So he was also known as Shakya Muni. Okay, so remember he was known as Shakya Muni, and this was in a PYQ. Fine. And finally, after attaining enlightenment, he was known as Buddha, the enlightened one. Okay, enlightened one. Fine. And the place where he attained enlightenment was Bodh Gaya in Bihar, and the tree under which he attained enlightenment was the Bodhi tree. Fine. So for 6 years, he performed penance and he attained enlightenment. All right. Yeah. Now, after achieving enlightenment, Buddha gave his first speech, gave his first sermon. And this event happened at Sarnath near Varanasi. Okay. So he gave his first speech, his first sermon at Sarnath near Varanasi. And this is a very important event in Buddhism. This is referred to as Dharma Chakra Pravartana. Dharma Chakra Pravartana means turning the wheel of law. Okay. So Dharma Chakra Pravartana. So we have seen the first important event was this event where he saw the four sides. So four great sides. Okay. This is the first event. The second important event, he left the house, which is known as Mahabhishakramana, the great renunciation. Okay. Then he attained enlightenment. Then the next important event is Dharma Chakra Pravartana. This is the event when Buddha gave his first speech, first sermon at Sarnath near Varanasi. And finally, at the age of 80, Buddha attained Mahaparinirvana. Now, this state, the state of enlightenment, is also known as the state of nirvana. Okay. So, nirvana in Buddhism, it means the state of peace and bliss where your all answers have been where your all questions have been answered. Okay. So nirvana is the state of enlightenment. Okay. Where your all the doubts are cleared, ultimate reality truth is being known to you. Fine. And the final phase is known as Mahaparinirvana. That is the moksha phase where the soul left the body. Okay. So in this way, this is the life cycle of Gautam Buddha from being born aspirant Siddharth to finally attaining Mahaparinirvana at Kushinagar in UP. We have already studied that Kushinagar, it was the one of the capitals of Malla kingdom. Okay. Now, important contemporaries of Buddha. So Mahavir was a contemporary of Buddha. Then King Prasenjit. Okay, we have already studied Prasenjit, Bimbisar, Ajat all these kings from the period of Mahajans. These were the contemporaries of Gautam Buddha. Okay, so when we talk about the teachings of Buddha, now we'll be understanding about the teachings of Buddha, like the fourfold path, then eightfold path, middle path, okay, non-violence, compassion, all this we are going to understand in details. Okay, now when we talk about the Buddha's teachings, they were based on wisdom, knowledge, compassion, and middle path. Now, Buddhism is oftenly considered to be a middle path. Why it is considered to be a middle path? The reason is that when I talk about Hinduism, Hinduism is quite liberal. Hinduism is quite liberal. Okay. When I talk about Hinduism, when I talk about Jainism, Jainism is quite extreme. In its original form, it's quite rigid and extreme. And Gautam Buddha, his teachings are neither as liberal as Hindu teachings nor as rigid as the teachings of Jainism. And hence, Buddhism is considered to be the middle path between Hinduism and Jainism. Okay, so it's a middle path, right? Now, let us understand the teachings of Buddha, that is a Buddhist philosophy in detail. Okay, so the essence of Buddhist teaching is to understand the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are nothing but Arya Satyas. Okay, so Arya Satya. So in Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths, they explain the nature of suffering. Okay, and how to end that suffering. So Gautam Buddha says that world is full of suffering. That is, everywhere there is a dukkha, there is a suffering. Okay, there is a cause of suffering. Cause, samudaya. There is a samudaya, there is a cause of suffering. And what is the cause of that suffering? Your desire, your trishna, your tanha. Okay, the more you desire in life, that is the cause of suffering. Like for example, if you desire for something and if it is not fulfilled, okay, then definitely you are going to be unhappy, you are going to suffer. So desire is the cause of suffering. And finally, how you can end this suffering? So Buddha says that the suffering can be ended, can be conquered by following the Ashtangika Marga. Ashtangika Marga, eightfold path. Okay. So desire can be conquered or can be ended. That is known as Nirodha. Nirodha means end of the desire. And this can be done by following the Ashtangika Marga. So these are known as the Four Noble Truths or the Arya Satya in Buddhism. Okay. The very first one, the world is full of suffering. Everywhere there is a dukkha. There is a cause of suffering, samudaya of dukkha. And the samudaya is the desire, your tanha, your trishna, your desire is the cause of suffering. And this can be conquered, can be ended. That is, there is a nirodha of this desire. And this can be done by following the eightfold path. So let us now understand the eightfold path, which is also known as Ashtangika Marga. Now, Ashtangika Marga, it is a middle way between luxurious life and a penance. That is extremities. It's a middle path. Okay. So, the very first one is right belief, right view about life, about reality. So, understanding the truth about the life, about the reality is very important. Okay. So, your belief system should be correct. Next is right intention, right thought. So you should always have good intention. Your thought should be full of compassion and kindness, empathy, sympathy towards others. Okay. Third, right speech. Whenever you are speaking, try to speak the truth. Speak kind words. Avoid harsh and harmful words that would hurt the sentiments of others. Okay. Next, right action. Let your action be ethical and harmless. Right livelihood, right living. So whenever you are earning for your livelihood, that earning should be in an ethical way, non-harmful way, honest way. Okay. Then right mindfulness or collection. So whenever you are recollecting something, try to recollect the good aspects, the good memories. Okay. And in this way you will feel good. Right effort. So make sincere efforts to do good, avoid evil efforts. Right concentration and meditation. So focus on mind, do meditation, try to attain the inner peace. Okay. So this is known as the Ashtangika Marga, right view or belief, right thought or intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood or living, right mindfulness or recollection, right effort, and right concentration or meditation. So, by understanding and by practicing these teachings, one can definitely end the suffering. That is, the desire this can be conquered, and ultimate suffering, the dukkha, can be ended. And you can attain the peace of mind and can finally it will lead to nirvana. So the essence of Buddha's teaching is to understand suffering, understand its cause, its path that leads to the end of suffering, and finally you can attain nirvana. Nirvana is the state of enlightenment, the state of peace and bliss. Okay. So these are the initial important teachings of the Buddha. Let us move ahead with the other aspects of Buddha. Okay. Now, the third important aspect, Buddha's thoughts on God. Okay. Now, Buddha did not affirm nor he deny about the existence of God. So he's silent, he's neutral with respect to the existence of God. Okay. So he considered such questions are not useful in ending the human suffering. So let's not dive into the existence, whether the God exists or does not. Let not dive into such questions. Okay. So he remained, please remember, he remained silent, neutral on the existence of God. He strongly advocated the philosophy of ahimsa, that is, non violence towards all living beings, and compassion and kindness were the key central ideas of his teachings. Third important thing. Okay. Sorry. This is yeah. So we have third. Yeah. Let's move ahead. So he rejected the authority of Vedas. So Buddha did not accept Vedas as the ultimate authority or as the ultimate reality. Okay. He said that with your own experiences, you can realize and attain enlightenment, nirvana, and wisdom. So you do not have to depend on the third party. Like, for example, in Hinduism, Brahmins were the ones, they boasted that we understand the Vedas. So we are the ones who can actually teach you, show you the path. of the liberation. However, Buddha said that no, there is no need of third party member to help you in your journey. Rather, just by your own experiences, you can attain the state of nirvana. Okay. Now, one thing which Buddha adheres in Hinduism, that is, he believed in the theory of karma and moksha, which are the foundational theories of Hinduism. Okay. So, in Hinduism, it is said that depending upon your karma, your birth is decided. And for your karma, you have to pay over here. Okay. If your karmas are bad, you have to repay for it. Okay, and finally to attain moksha. So these are the theories which Buddha followed, and these are the central theories in Hinduism. Okay, so he accepted the law of karma, that every action has a consequence, and he also accepted moksha, nirvana, as the ultimate liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Okay, so actually this nirvana over here we are referring to mahaparinirvana. Mahaparinirvana. Only nirvana, when I say, it is enlightenment. And when we say mahaparinirvana, it is actually the final salvation. Okay. Now, Buddha was against rituals and animal sacrifice. He condemned meaningless rituals, costly ceremonies, and killing of animals in the name of religion. He emphasized morality, compassion over rituals. And finally, he talked about attainment of nirvana. So, the ultimate goal of life is nirvana, that is a state of peace and bliss, which leads to the extinction of the flame of desire. Okay, so once you attain this nirvana, you are no more in a state of a desire. Okay, so that will ultimately lead to end of your ignorance and your suffering. Fine. So, and this nirvana will finally take you to Mahaparinirvana. So this nirvana is crucial to attain the Mahaparinirvana, that is moksha. So this is the key central Buddhist philosophy. So Buddhist philosophy is based on compassion, wisdom, self-discipline, leading to inner peace, ethical living, and liberation from the suffering. So these teachings are extremely important from the prelims perspective. So do remember the noble truths, eightfold path, and all these pointers. Okay, his views on God. He was silent. He believed in ahimsa, rejected the authority of Vedas, believed in karma and moksha theory of Hinduism, was against ritualism and animal sacrifice, and believed in the attainment of nirvana. Please remember, nirvana is a state of peace and bliss, which ultimately leads to the extinction of the desire, flame of desire, and it is a path that leads to Mahaparinirvana. All right. Now, let us try to understand about the different aspects of Buddhism, which are very important from the prelims perspective. Okay. Now we are going to understand the Buddhist councils. So, total 4 Buddhist councils were organized in order to preserve the teachings of Buddha, to maintain the unity in Buddhist Sangha. Now, what is Sangha? Sangha is basically Buddhist monastic order. Monastic order. Okay. Sangha is basically the Buddhist monastic order, or you can say an organization. Organization of Buddhist monks and nuns. Okay. So this is the Buddhist Sangha. And there were certain rules and regulations to be followed in order to become the member of the Buddhist Sangha. Both male and females were accepted as the members of Buddhist Sangha. Okay. Now, when we talk about the first Buddhist council, so we have already covered in the previous session, in the period of Mahajanpadas, that Ajatsatru met Gautam Buddha, he embraced Buddhism, and later on, after the Mahaparinirvana, Ajatsatru convened the very first Buddhist council. Okay, so the first Buddhist council convened after the Mahaparinirvana of Buddha. This was done in the capital of Magad. Rajagriha was the then capital of Magad in Bihar. Convened, the patron was Ajatsatru. The chief monk who presided over the council was Mahakashyapa. Okay. The main purpose of this council was to compile the teachings of Buddha. So this was immediately after the Mahaparinirvana of Buddha. So whatever teachings of Buddha were there, they wanted to preserve it, compile it. Okay, and also to settle down whatever disputes were there within the Buddhist Sangha, to maintain the unity within the Buddhist Sangha. Okay, now in this particular council, disciples of Buddha recited the Buddha's sermon. So Ananda, Ananda recited the Buddhist sermons, and these were known as suttas. So we are going to understand what are suttas. Upali. Upali recited, he was yet another disciple of Buddha. He recited the code of conduct for the Buddhist Sangha. So, what rules and regulations need to be followed by the nuns and monks, that was recited by Upali, and that is mentioned in Vinaya. Okay, so like that, there are three Pitakas. Sutta is there, Vinaya is there, and Abhinav Dhamma is there. These three collectively are known as the Pitakas. Okay, three baskets of Buddhism. We'll study them separately. So, as of now, just remember the very first Buddhist council was convened under the patronage of King Ajatasattu at Rajagriha in Bihar, presided by Mahakassapa. Ananda recited Buddha's sermon preserved in the text suttas, and Upali recited the monastic rules preserved in Vinaya. Okay. Now, coming towards the second Buddhist council, it was convened in Vaishali in Bihar nearly 100 years after the first council. Okay, this was done by the king of the Shishunaga dynasty. The name of the king is Kalasoka, also known as Kakavarman. The chief monk, please remember the chief monk of each and every council and also the patron king. So the chief monk was Sabakami. Now, this particular council was organized in order to resolve the dispute regarding the certain monastic practices followed by Vajjayans. Okay, so Vajjayans, whatever practices they followed, okay, so there were certain different, these were not approved by some of the other members, okay, and hence, as a result, they wanted to resolve this. Vajji was one of the Mahajanpad, okay, so council disapproved 10 practices of Vajjayans. And this led to a major split in the Buddhist monastic order. So Sangha was divided into two groups, into two sects in this second council. The first one was Staviravadin. Staviravadin referred to the group of elders. And the second was Mahasanghikas. Mahasangika was known as great community. So please remember, in the second council, the Sangha was divided into two groups. Staviravadins, this was a group of elders, and Mahasangika, that is a great community. Okay. Coming towards the third council. The third council was organized in Patliputra in modern day Bihar, and this was convened by Emperor Ashoka. We all know that after the Battle of Kalinga, Ashoka embraced Buddhism and he became one of the finest and the greatest patrons of Buddhism. So he convened the third Buddhist council at Patliputra. This was presided by the monk. The name of the monk was Mogaliputta Tissa. Okay, so Mogaliputta Tissa. So the main purpose of this was to purify Sangha by removing the impure elements and to spread Buddhism. So Ashoka played a very important role in spreading Buddhism outside India. Ashoka sent his son and daughter. So name of Ashoka's son was Mahendra and daughter was Sanghamitra. They were sent to spread Buddhism to Sri Lanka. And today, the major dominant religion of Sri Lanka is Buddhism, and the credit goes to Emperor Ashoka. Then missionaries were sent to different countries, to Central Asia, Greece, Egypt, Nepal, in order to spread Buddhism. So Ashoka played a very important role in globalizing Buddhism. Okay. The fourth and the final council was convened by Kanishka. Kanishka, he was the king of the Kushan dynasty. He convened the fourth Buddhist council. It was convened in Kashmir, and the chief monk was Vasumitra. Okay, Ashwagosha assisted him. He was the vice president, but the main presiding monk was Vasumitra. Okay, so fourth Buddhist council. So the chief monk was Vasumitra, and he was assisted by, you can say the vice president was Ashwa Ghosha. All right. So, to compile and systemize the teachings and the philosophy of Buddhism, this council was convened. Now, in this particular council, Abhidhamma Pitaka, it is a third part of the Pitaka, was compiled. And one important aspect which happened in this council was that in this council, we find that ultimately Mahayana as a new sect of Buddhism emerged. So from the fourth council onwards, we find a new grouping in Buddhism, Hinayana and Mahayana. Okay, so please remember all these four Buddhist councils, the presiding monks, then the patrons, place where it was convened, and also the important outcomes, because frequently they are tested in the preliminary examination. All right, so we have completed the four Buddhist councils. Moving ahead, now we are going to understand the Buddhist literature. So, in the Buddhist literature, let us try to understand the basics. So, first of all, until and unless Buddha was there, all his philosophy, all his teachings were originally passed on orally. So, orally, he used to dictate the sermons. It is after his Mahaparinirvana, his disciples compiled and wrote down those sermons. And finally, these collections are presented in Tipitaka. So, Tipitaka are basically the earliest compilations of the Buddhist teachings. Originally, they were written on narrow leaves. Okay, so they were written in the narrow leaves and they were put into the basket. So they were written on the leaves, put into the basket. So there were total three baskets. The first basket was of Sutta Pitaka, the second basket was of Vinaya, and the third was of Abhidhamma Pitaka. And hence these are known as the three baskets of Buddhism or Tripitakas. Tipitakas in Pali language and Tripitaka in the Sanskrit language. Okay. Now, when we talk about the Sutta Pitaka, it is the basket of discourses. So these Pitakas, the very first one, Sutta, contains all the speeches and the sermons given by Gautam Buddha across his life journey. Okay. Also, it includes the speeches of the key Buddhist disciples. So, the key Buddha's disciples were Ananda and Sariputta. Even their sermons are mentioned, even their speeches are mentioned in Sutta Pitaka. And Sutta Pitaka was recited by Ananda in the first Buddhist council. So, Sutta Pitaka is known as the basket of discourses. It contains the speeches of Gautam Buddha and also Buddha's key disciples like Ananda and Sariputta. The second basket is the Vinaya Pitaka. Vinaya Pitaka, it contains the rules and regulations to be followed by the Buddhist monastic order, Sangha. That is, the rules and regulations, the code of conduct to be followed by Buddhist monks and nuns. This was recited by Upali in the first Buddhist council. And finally, you have Abhidhamma Pitaka. Abhidhamma Pitaka is a basket of higher teachings. Basically, this contains the core Buddhist philosophy. Okay. The other important Buddhist texts are Jataka tales. Jataka tales, these are the stories related to the birth of Buddha. It's a voluminous body of literature. It is being said that before born as Buddha, Buddha underwent approximately 550 births. So he underwent 550 births. In some life form, he was an animal, he was a tiger, he was an elephant, and in every form, human or animal form, he tried to give some moral message. So these are the different stories. Okay, even there used to be a cartoons on these Jataka tales. Okay, where all the important moral teachings of Buddha are revealed. Okay. Then the next is Deepavamsa and Mahavamsa. Deepavamsa and Mahavamsa, they were written in the Pali language, and these are considered to be the Sri Lankan chronicles. So we understood that Ashoka sent his son and daughter to Sri Lanka, and as a result, Buddhism emerged as a major religion in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lankan people, they compiled the teachings of Buddha, and these are known as the Sri Lankan Chronicles. It also mentions the details of Buddha's life, Buddha's counsels, about Ashoka, his journey, how he embraced Buddhism. Okay, so everything is being mentioned in this. Okay, the next important text is Vishuddha Marga. Vishuddha Marga, Vishuddha Marga in Pali and Vishuddha Marga in it is pronounced in Sanskrit. Okay, so Vishuddha Marga as per Pali, it is the path to purification, path to the marga to shuddhi, marga to purification. This was written by Buddha Ghosha. Okay, it deals with the development from the purity of discipline to enlightenment. Okay, Then we have Milinda Panho. It was written in the Pali language. So this is a dialogue between Indo-Greek king Milinda, also known as Menander, and a monk Nagasena. So Nagasena, he was a Buddhist monk who helped Milinda to embrace Buddhism. So before getting converted into Buddhism, Milinda or Menander, he had many questions. So he questioned uh, to Nagasena. Nagasena replied to him, and all this question and answer discussion is presented in this book, Milinda Panhu. Literally, it means the questions of Milinda. It is written in the Pali language. Okay, so these are the important Buddhist texts. There is one more important text, Ashwagosha, the one who was the vice president, Ashwagosha. We'll study about him in the Kushan period. He wrote the hagiography or the biography of Buddha known as Buddha Charita. Buddha Charita. So Buddha Charita was written by Ashwagosha. Okay, Ashwagosha. Now, let's move ahead now. So we have completed all the councils. We have covered the important texts. Now let us try to understand the different schools of Buddhism. Okay. So the very first school of Buddhism is Hinayana. Hinayana literally means the lesser path. Okay. Now, Hinayana, it adheres to the original teachings of Buddha. Okay. It is in line with the original teachings of the Lord Gautam Buddha. Right. Its scriptures are in Pali language. That is, they use the same language as it was used by Gautam Buddha. They do not believe in idol worship. So there is no belief in idol worship or in ritualism, nothing. They believe in the Buddhism as preached by Gautam Buddha. That is a simple in the original form. They believe that any individual can attain moksha through discipline and meditation. Okay, so any common person can attain moksha, mahaparinirvana, salvation through self discipline and meditation. Believe in attaining moksha, and this particular form of Buddhism, it is practiced in countries like Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and especially in Southeast Asia. This type of Buddhism was patronized by Ashoka. Okay, so this is Hinayana. So Hinayana emphasizes on self-effort, discipline, meditation to attain enlightenment. The sub-schools of Hinayana are Theravadins. Theravadin is a sub-school of Hinayana. This is also known as doctrine of elders. So we had seen that in the second council, in the second Buddhist council, we got a subgroup, a sect, Staviravadins. These Staviravadins, it was mentioned over the elders. So these are the same Staviravadins who later on came to be known as Theravadins. Okay, so Staviravadin, Theravadins are one and the same, and they are a part of Hinayana. Okay, next. The next sub school of Hinayana is Sarvastivada. Sarvastivada is yet another sub school. Sarvastivada has further two groupings, Vaibhashika and Sautrantika. Just try to remember these names because sometimes in prelims they do ask, like for example, Theravada is a subgroup of which group of Buddhism. So it is a subgroup of Hinayana. Okay. So Hinayana, I hope it is pretty clear. It aligns with the original teachings of Buddha. There are two groups, Theravadins, also known as Taviravadins, and we have Sarvastivada, which further has two groups, Vaibhashika and Sautrantika. Okay, so no need to go into their details. Just remember these groups were there, and all of them aligned with the original teachings of Gautam. Let us proceed ahead with the other schools of Buddhism. So now we are going to understand the next important group that emerged in the second Buddhist council, and that was Mahasanghikas. All right. So in the second Buddhist council, an important group that emerged, that was Mahasanghikas, and this particular group, they believed in fostering the idea of Mahayana by deification of Buddha. It means that now earlier it was thought that the Hinayana people, they thought that, or they considered, they believed that Buddha was a normal human being because of his immense practices, self practices, discipline, meditation. He was able to attain enlightenment. However, Mahasanghikas began to spread the notion was Buddha was not a human being. Buddha was a god. And this belief was further strengthened and fostered by Mahayana Buddhism. So initially, this belief of Buddha as a deity, the deification of Buddha was initially done by Mahasanghikas, which was later on fostered by Mahayana Buddhism. Okay. Now, Mahasanghikas, they have a subgroup Lokattar Vada. Fine. So, Mahasanghikas subgroup is Lokattar Vada. So, Mahasanghikas, they played a very important role in the evolution of Mahayana Buddhism by promoting the idea of divine nature of Buddha. Now, let us try to understand the important school, that is Mahayana. Generally, Hinayana and Mahayana are the important aspects for the preliminary examination. Okay. Now, Hinayana, we studied that it was a lesser path or a lesser vehicle. Mahayana is considered to be the greater path of salvation, the greater vehicle of salvation. All right. Now, Hinayana considers that Buddha was a normal human being. However, Mahayana built upon the Mahasanghikas belief of deification of Buddha. They began to consider Buddha as a god. Not only this, they began to spread the notion, or they believed in the concept that Buddha was an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. They considered Buddha as the ninth avatar of Vishnu. Okay. Basically, they were influenced by Hinduism. So, Mahayana Buddhism has a great influence of Hinduism. The third important thing, they believed in the idol worship. So basically, you can see that this is a slow and gradual divergence from the original teachings of Gautam Buddha. They believed in idol worship. Okay. And the scriptures of the Mahayana Buddhism are in Sanskrit language, whereas of Hinayana are in the Pali language. The next and the very important concept with respect to Mahayana Buddhism is they believed in the concept of Bodhisattva. Now, who were these Bodhisattvas? Bodhisattvas were basically compassionate Buddhist monks who were actually Buddhas in making. So basically, Bodhisattvas are in the process of becoming Buddha. But what will happen if a person will become a Buddha? He will attain Nirvana and finally he will attain Mahaparinirvana. Mahaparinirvana, that is end of the cycle of life and death. He will attain moksha. There will be no rebirth. So instead of attaining the status of Buddhahood, they decided that we will become Bodhisattvas. So Bodhisattvas are basically Buddhas in making. In the sense, they will attain the path of Nirvana, but they will not move towards Mahaparinirvana. They will go to heaven instead of attaining moksha. Why? If we will go to Swarga, if we will go to heaven, again there will be a rebirth. You will come back and you will spread the Buddhism. Okay. If you'll go to moksha, it is the end of the cycle of life and death. There is no rebirth. So Bodhisattvas are basically Buddhas in making who can become Buddha, but they are delaying their salvation. They are delaying their Mahaparinirvana for the welfare of others. Okay. So they are seen as compassionate beings who are Buddhas in making. They aim to go to heaven rather than attaining. So very important concept in Mahayana Buddhism. So do remember this. So the aim of Mahayana Buddhism is to go to heaven instead of attaining moksha. Whereas in the Hinayana, the aim was to attain moksha. Fine. The sub-schools of Mahayana were Yogachara, which is also known as Vijnanavada. So Yogachara or Vijnanavada is the first important school of Mahayana. Sub-school we are talking about. The founder of this school, Yogachara Vijnanavada, was Maitreya Nath. Maitreya Nath was a guru of two important Buddhist monks, Asanga and Vasubandhu. So Asanga and Vasubandhu are associated with this school, Yogachara or Vijnanavada. Okay. Then the next important school is Madhyamika, which believes in the doctrine of emptiness, Shunyavada. Okay. So everything is empty of inherent existence. So Madhyamika or Shunyavada, its founder is Nagarjuna. So these can be preliminary questions. Who is the founder of Madhyamika school or Shunyavada school? So answer is Nagarjuna. Madhyamika or Shunyavada is a sub-school of which main Buddhist school? So these are the sub-schools of Mahayana Buddhist school. So that you need to remember. So both Hinayana and Mahayana do follow certain core teachings of Gautam Buddha, but it is being seen that slowly and gradually Mahayana differed in their religious beliefs, in their practices, and hence it diverged from the main aspect of the core teachings of Gautam Buddha. Okay, so these are the three important schools. There is one more important school which we'll be covering, and that is Vajrayana. Vajrayana literally means vehicle of thunderbolt. Okay, it is also called as the diamond vehicle. Now, this particular school was influenced by Tantra Mantra of Hinduism, and hence this is also known as Tantrayana, Mantrayana, or esoteric Buddhism. Fine. So, developed around 6th to 7th century AD or CE in India, followed in China, Tibet, Mongolia, Bhutan, Nepal. The key practices involve mudras, mantras, mandala is a sacred diagram which they follow, then rituals and ceremonies. Okay, all these aspects are there. No need to go into the uh, details, but just remember that they believe in mantra and tantra. Even they aim to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Fine, but please remember the word bodhisattva, whenever it comes, it is always associated with the Mahayana Buddhism. Okay, Mahayana Buddhism. It is not associated with Vajrayana. Okay, it is purely associated with Mahayana. Vajrayana, they believe in mantra and tantra practices. Okay, so these are the four important schools which we have covered: Hinayana, Mahasangikas, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Very important from the preliminary perspective. Now let us emphasize on the Buddhist architecture. Okay, so Buddhist architecture is again important from the preliminary perspective. So there are two key important Buddhist structures. The very first one is Chaitya and the second one is Vihara. Okay, Chaitya refers to the Buddhist prayer hall or the worship hall. Fine. So when I talk about Chaitya, Chaityas were used by the monks and the lay followers, the common people, those who worship Buddha, for the purpose of worship, prayer, and meditation. Okay. So usually what used to happen, now this is a famous Karle Chaitya in Maharashtra. So this is a stupa, and in front of stupa, there is a prayer hall, and these are the pillars across it. Okay, you can visualize this. So this is a religious prayer hall where people used to stand and offer their prayer, or they used to sit and do the meditation. Okay, so prayer hall with an apsidal end. Apsidal end, you can see over here. So this is a typical structure of a chaitya. Okay, you can see over here the structure of a chaitya. So basically, this rectangular portion is the prayer hall. Here there is a stupa. This is a semicircular, which is called as apsidal end. Okay, and these are the pillars across it. And the famous Chaitya is the Karli Chaitya. There is one more Chaitya in Maharashtra, Bhaja cave. So Bhaja is also a famous, it is known for Chaitya. So important Chaityas in India are Karle, Bhaja, Bedsa, Kanheri. So these are rock cut Chaityas. So there was a big rock which was being cut down, and out of which the Chaitya was made. So please remember, Chaityas are basically the prayer halls used by monks and the lay followers. So it's a prayer hall, and at the end of the Chaitya, there is a stupa. Okay. Then the next is Vihara. Vihara are nothing but the monasteries, or you can say the dwelling place or the places of residence of monks. Okay, so this was used for living, study purpose, and meditation. You can say that these were the residential quarters for monks, and these viharas, they had cells around a central courtyard. So there used to be a, so you can see over here, there's a central courtyard over here. Across the central courtyard, there used to be a shrine or a stupa, and then around this, there used to be cells for monk. Individual monk had their own cells where they used to sit and do the meditation. Okay, and here is the entrance, and this was a type of a veranda. So, viharas are basically the residences, the dwelling places of a monk. Often, it was also accompanied by a shrine or a stupa. There used to be individual cells or compartment for the purpose of meditation. All right. And example of viharas we find in Ajanta caves, in Ellora caves, in Nashik, in Kanheri. All right. So these were all rock cut viharas. So chaityas and viharas are a very important aspects of the Buddhist architecture. So do remember this, because already there was a prelims question on the difference between chaitya and viharas. All right. Now, the next important Buddhist structure of worship is the stupa. So let us try to understand what is stupa. So stupa is a it is a hemispherical structure that houses the relics of Buddha and the revered monks. Okay, so basically, after the Mahaparinirvana of Buddha, the remains of Buddha, like his hair, his teeth, his bones, okay, they were taken and they were distributed at the 9 parts. And they were kept in a box. So basically, inside this, so this is a covered one just to show the image. So it is being mentioned like this. So this is a box, which contains the remains of Buddha. So initial stupas contain the relics of Buddha. The later stupas contain the relics of the famous Buddhist monks. And there are some stupas which do not contain any relics. Okay. So if there is a preliminary question, all the stupas contain the relics of Buddha? No. The initial stupas contain the relics of Buddha. The later ones contain the relics of the Buddhist monks. And the later stupas, the very later ones, they do not contain the relics. Okay, so basically the stupa, the original ones, they contain a relic chamber which houses the remains of Buddha, the bodily remains of Buddha. On that there is a dome like structure which is called as the under. This is the under, the dome like, and this is a solid one, you cannot enter into it. This is a solid, okay, covered one. Fine, so that is there. Then this is a hermika. It is like a square railing, a balcony like structure. Okay, this is chhatra. It's like a sign of royalty. Fine, so there's a central mast. Okay, central mast is there, which is called as yashti. Okay, and there is a this design which we often see in the Hindu temples. In the Hindu temples we have kalash like design. Here this is called a chhatra, symbol of honor or royalty. Okay, so this is under the solid structure. This is a relic chamber. Then this is circular structure which is called as a medhi. So this is a circular drum like structure, medhi, and across here there is a path for taking the pradakshina, the circumambulatory path to go around the stupa. We oftenly in Hinduism and all, we go around the temple, Garbhagriha. So like that, there was a structure, circumambulatory path. Okay. And finally, you had Vedika. Vedika was the final outer railing. You will see where there's a final outer railing. It was called as Vedika. And there were toranas. Toranas are basically entrances, or you can say gateways. So in the 4 directions, there were 4 toranas. So like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now north, south, east, west, 4 entrances were there. Vedika is the outer railing, okay? The inner one is called as the Meji. Now this can be a mains question. In the mains, you can get this question to describe the Buddhist architecture. There is a plan of a stupa. So during that time, in such question, you need to draw this diagram. Okay. I hope the structure of a stupa is clear. So on the top, you have chhatra, the sign of royalty. Yashti, the mast is there. Then hermika, a balcony-like structure is there. Then a dome-like structure is there. Relic chamber is there. Medhi, the inner railing across which there is a circumambulatory path. Then the outer railing, stone railing, is Vedika, and you have Toranas. Toranas were highly ornamented, they were sculpted. Okay. Now, this is the famous Sanchi Stupa, which was commemorated by Emperor Ashoka. So, in Sanchi, there is a great stupa which will be covering in the Mauryan Empire part. So, the Sanchi Stupa, the very famous one, it was built by Ashoka. Now, stupa is place of worship in Buddhism. It symbolizes Buddha, his teachings. All right. So this is a very auspicious place of worship in Buddhism. So this is an important one. Fine. Now, so we have understood the Buddhist architecture. Now let's move ahead. We have understood chaityas, viharas, and stupa. Yet another important aspect of Buddhism is the Buddhist paintings. So Ajanta caves, which we'll be exploring in detail, okay? So Ajanta caves are located in Maharashtra. It is a UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Ajanta caves are known for the mural paintings, okay? And these mural paintings are attributed to the Buddhist theme, and hence they are considered to be the greatest masterpiece of Buddhist art. Fine. So Ajanta caves, which will narrative depictions of the Buddha's life and the life stories is being depicted over here, and number of vivid colors are being used over here. It is an excellent example of ancient Indian paintings. Okay, so the key themes are life of Buddha, all the depictions, the birth of Buddha, Maya Devi's vision of white elephant is depicted over here. Then Buddha's great sights, the image depicting Buddha visualizing the four great sights, his great renunciation when he left his house on the when he's left his palace on the horse, so that is being depicted. Then Buddha's preaching of the sermon, that is being depicted over here. Jataka tales, the tales depicting the life stories of Buddha are elaborated in a paintings. Court scenes, then Mahaparinirvana of Buddha, or a meditation of Buddha, everything is beautifully described over here. So please remember, Ajanta caves, the Ajanta mural paintings are based on Buddhist theme. Okay, we will be covering this in a separate topic, but as of now, just remember, Ajanta murals are timeless testimony to India's rich artistic heritage, and Buddhism has a profound influence on this. Okay, they continue to inspire the world, and they are UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Okay, known for the vivid, rich colors being used over here. Now, there are certain terms which are very important from the prelims perspective. So let us discuss those terms. Upasaka. Upasaka are basically male lay followers of Buddhism. If a person is just a lay worshipper of Buddha, is called as Upasaka, male. Upasikas are female. Chaityas, prayer halls. Viharas, monasteries. Now, it is considered that future Buddha is going to come. So please remember, the name of the future Buddha as mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures is Maitreya. Okay, so Maitreya is considered to be the future Buddha. And this was a PYQ. Shramana. Shramana are basically wandering monks who used to move from here and there, ascetics. And they are basically ascetics who renounce their family. And it's a layman term, like for everyone. Jivikas, Hindu monks, Jain monks, everyone were known as Shramana. Okay, the ascetics. And if we want a wandering monks specifically associated with Buddhism, then they were known as Parivrajaka. This was also PYQ, so please remember, Parivrajaka are the wandering monks specifically associated with Buddhism. Okay, Shramana, it's a layman term, where ascetics for any religion. Okay, now let us solve few MCQs. These are the PYQs. Let us understand them one by one. So, the very first one, some Buddhist caves are called chaityas, while others are viharas. What is the key difference between the two? Vihara is a place of worship, whereas chaitya is the dwelling place of monks. Chaitya is a place of worship, while viharas is the dwelling place of monks. Chaitya is the stupa at the far end of the cave, while the vihara is a hall axial to it. There's no material difference between the two. Yes, what is the answer? Just now we discussed. Yes. So the answer is B. Chaitya is basically a place of worship, and Vihara is the dwelling place of monks. Actually, Bihar, state of Bihar, was actually a Vihara. It was known as Vihara, dwelling place of monks. Many monks were there in Bihar. Then that Vihara became Bihar. Okay. With reference to Indian history, who among the following is a future Buddha yet to come to save the world? We have already seen the answer is C, Maitreya. So please remember, Maitreya is considered to be the future Buddha. Okay. Then the next question is, I'll just clear the drawings. Clear. Yeah. With reference to the religious history of India, consider the following statement. The concept of Bodhisattva is central to Hinayana sect of Buddhism. Bodhisattva is a compassionate one on his way to enlightenment. Bodhisattva delays achieving his own salvation to help all the sentient beings on their path to it. Okay. So, Bodhisattva, we have understood that is a concept which is central to Mahayana. So, it is a Mahayana concept. So, this is wrong. Yes, compassionate being, and they delay their own journey of Mahaparinirvana in order to help the other beings to achieve and to live a good life. Okay, so answer is 2 and 3. Yes. The next question, consider the following. Deification of Buddha, threading the path of Bodhisattvas, image worship and rituals. Which of the above are the features of Mahayana Buddhism? So what are the features of Mahayana? Deification, yes. They believe that Buddha is an avatar of Lord Vishnu, 9th avatar. Threading the path of Bodhisattvas, absolutely correct. And image worship and rituals, absolutely correct. All of the above. So these are the MCQs and these are the PYQs, okay, UPSC PYQs. So you can understand that if you know the core concept, you will be in a position to attempt this. And whatever we have covered, that is more than sufficient to answer these PYQs, okay? Yes. Let us discuss this. Again, these are the PYQs. With reference to the cultural history of India, consider the following. Okay. So the Pari Vajraka, renunciant and wanderer, Shramana, priest with a high status, Upasaka, lay follower of Buddhism. Which of the pairs are correctly matched? So definitely, Shramana is a wrong pair. We saw that Shramana is an ascetic, right? So this is wrong. So if you eliminate 2, your answer is 1 and 3. So let us see 1 and 3. Parivrajaka, renunciant and wanderer, yes, correct, pertaining to Buddhism. And Upasaka, lay follower of Buddhism. So answer is 1 and 3. Let's solve the next one, sixth one. With reference to the religious history of India, consider the following. Sthaviravadins belong to Mahayana Buddhism. Lokattarvadin sect was an offshoot of Mahasangika sect of Buddhism. Deification of Buddha by Mahasangikas fostered the Mahayana Buddhism. So this is a PYQ. This came, I guess, in 2024 prelims. Okay. So what is the answer? Sthaviravadin belong to Mahayana? No. Sthaviravadin, we saw that it is a part of Hinayana. So the statement number 1 is false. So just eliminate 1. So from the options, we know that the answer is either B or C. From this, we come to know 3 is definitely correct. Okay, so we have understood this. Deification of Buddha was actually the concept of Mahasangikas, which was later on followed by Mahayana Buddhism and fostered by them. So 3 is absolutely correct. Second, Lokattarvadin was an offshoot of Mahasangika. Yes, we have seen this. Mahasangika group emerged in the Second Buddhist Council. Right? And then we had its subgroup Lokattarvadin. So answer is 2 and 3. This was a PYQ. So after following this content, I hope we are in a position to solve this PYQs. Okay. Now, the next question which we can expect from the mains perspective, that is, what is the contribution of Buddhism to the field of art and architecture in India? So Buddhism had a profound and a lasting impact on art and architecture. What is this? What is the impact? Okay. So you need to write an introduction about Buddhism. Then you have to emphasize on the Buddhist art. Okay. So you need to write about paintings, Ajanta paintings, which we'll be covering in detail. Then you need to write about the stupa architecture. You need to write about Chaitya, Vihara, mention the examples of Chaitya and Vihara. All right. Then you can write about symbolic representation of Buddha. So on the stupas, okay. So in Hinayana, they do not do image worship. In Hinayana, there is no image worship. There's a symbolic worship of Buddha. So they drew certain symbols in order to worship Buddha. For example, if there was a symbol of a Bodhi tree, so Bodhi tree represents what? It represents enlightenment of Buddha. Okay. If there was a chakra. So chakra is associated with Dharma Chakra Pravartana event, the speech of Buddha, the first speech of Buddha. Okay, chakra. So that is the chakra. Okay. Then if there is a stupa symbol or there is a throne which is empty, that shows the Mahaparinirvana, the demise of Buddha. Okay. Then if there is a lotus and white elephant are associated with the birth of Buddha. We saw that Maya Devi, she had a dream of white elephant entering her womb. So white elephant is associated with the birth of Buddha. Lotus, when Maya Devi was delivering baby Siddhartha, during that she delivered the baby Siddhartha across a lake. So there were lotus leaves which were brought to cover her. So lotus also depicts the birth of Buddha. Okay. So lotus, white elephant are associated with the birth of Buddha. Then if a horse is being depicted, horse depicts the great renunciation because on the horse chariot, he left his house. Okay. He's left his kingdom. Right. So these are the important symbols, symbolic art associated with the Hinayana Buddhism, because in that they do not do image worship of Buddha. So they drew different symbols to worship Buddha. So that you can emphasize. Okay. Then in the upcoming sessions, we'll be studying about the different schools of art that were inspired from Buddhism. Like, for example, Gandhara School of Art, which flourished during the time of Kushans. Okay, we'll be studying it separately, so that you will be in a position to attempt this question during that time. Mathura School of Art, Amravati School of Art. These schools of art, they drew their inspiration from Buddhism and they built different sculptures of Buddha. Okay, so you need to write all this thing. Stupas. Ashoka commissioned the creation of the Sanchi Stupa. The later stupas are Baharut Stupa, Amravati Stupa, Nagarjuna Konda Stupa. Then you need to write about the Chaityas and the Viharas. All right. So all this depicts the Buddhism had a great impact on the field of art and architecture in India. Not only this, Buddhism flourished in India, but it also became a global religion. All right. So it spread to other countries as well. And Buddhism encouraged secular themes, humanism, and compassion. Right. And it laid to the foundation to the later developments in India. So in this way, you can attempt this question. This could be a 10 or a 15 marker question in the mains examination. I hope the topic of Buddhism is pretty clear. In this journey of religious movement, so we have covered the first religious movement, that is Buddhism. In the upcoming session, we'll be covering the second religious movement of the 6th century BC, that was Jainism. Okay. Thank you.